Welcome to R&R Living Life. We pick up this episode at Kumasi, bounded to the east by the meandering Horton River and to the north by Burrumbush Creek, a tributary of the Horton River, about 25 kilometres south of Townsville, as we continue our journey south. Land use in the area is predominantly grazing on native vegetation. We passed the Cromarty Wetlands, a large coastal wetland and vital wildlife habitat that lies between Mount Elliot and the Horton River and the coast, covering some 1,600 hectares that currently contains a large cattle station. The wetlands are said to have over 250 bird species, including magpie geese, brolgas, pelicans, black ducks and cattle egrets, 51 reptile species and around 45 mammal species and numerous invertebrates. By all accounts a great bird-watching spot. We only got to see some of the bird life and cattle as we drove past. Another place to add to our list, with free camping at the Cromarty recreational area near Giru, as it sits right next to the tidal creek and boat ramp, offering a maximum stay of 4 days with no bookings required. We then bypassed Giru, situated on the Horton River, with a 1,850 square kilometre catchment area, with its headwaters rising in the Harvey Range and within the Bowling Green Bay National Park. Rick and I went down the windows to smell the freshly cut lucerne, yet to be raked into rows for baling, then more cattle grazing beside a lagoon, and, yet again, more sugarcane farms. To me, there seemed to be a lot of water around, especially for this time of year. We passed Horseshoe Lagoon, a 70-hectare off-stream lagoon on the right bank of the Horton River, surrounded by intensive agricultural and sugarcane land, also said to be a prime bird-watching spot. Since at least 1998, the water surface of Horseshoe Lagoon has been affected by a number of exotic weeds, degrading the water quality, competing against the native plants on the water's edge, and causing blockages and sedimentation of flow channels. Over the years there have been efforts to remove the aquatic weeds and improve the water quality. We were now entering the Burdekin region in the dry tropics, spanning just over 5,000 square kilometres in the delta of the Burdekin River, and has existed as a local government entity since 1888, with the Shire's most important asset, water. The Burdekin River, combined with a massive underground aquifer and the Burdekin Falls Dam, make the district drought resistant. While the Burdekin is one of Australia's richest agricultural regions, the area also boasts strong horticultural, aquaculture and manufacturing industries, and is recognised as having high levels of solar radiation, with 2 solar farms located in the district. Just short of Ayr, we passed through the small rural community of Brandon, named after Henry Brandon, who was associated with the pioneer sugar plantation in Mackay. Upon disposing of his Mackay interest, Brandon acquired land west of Sheep Station Creek and set about installing a sugar mill named Pioneer. There was a web of sugar plantation selections in the area, and one enterprising selector close to the site of the mill subdivided his land for a township in 1882, which he named Brandon. From Brandon we made our way to Ayr, established in 1882 and located on the northern approach to the Burdekin River and in the middle of prime sugar country, with about 80,000 hectares of sugarcane planted. Today, Ayr is one of the largest cane and mango farming areas in Australia, as well as producing melons and other fruits and vegetables. A rich network of creeks and mangrove-lined estuaries make the area ideal for fishing and crabbing, with the surrounding wetlands offering excellent bird-watching opportunities, including the cotton pygmy goose, which is listed as endangered in New South Wales. In the early 1860s, a pastoral rush to the Burdekin and Bowen districts began, and included the Jarvis Field and Inkerman pastoral runs. A township, Wickham, was established in 1864, a few kilometres inland from the mouth of the Burdekin, but was soon swept away by flooding. In 1870s, Jarvisfield and other pastoral estates were resumed for land selection, and pastoral activity was replaced by sugar cultivation on the fertile delta lands. A camping reserve had been laid out next to Plantation Creek, one of many creeks in the Burdekin Delta, in 1880, and the rush of land selections for sugar led to lots at the reserve becoming the township of Ayr. In 1883, the first of several crushing mills in the area was established. The town was finally connected by rail to Bowen in 1913 by the low-level Inkerman Bridge, in operation between 1913 and 1957, a hazardous undertaking, as the bridge was frequently closed due to water over it being washed away, or because the bridge was damaged by floods, leading to months of closure while it was repaired. It wasn't until 1923 when a low-level road bridge similar to the rail crossing was proposed as essential to join the two towns of Ayr and Home Hill, just 11 kilometres apart. Unfortunately, the bridge did not eventuate until 1930. Until then, motorist vehicles were towed across by a horse-drawn punt. In 1947, a project commenced to build a high-level road and rail bridge to replace the Inkerman Bridge, but owing to the sandy soil without any rock to provide foundations for a higher bridge and shortages of steel during the post-war years, it took 10 years to design and construct the Burdekin Bridge, which opened in March 1957. As we crossed the spectacular 1,103 metre long Burdekin River Bridge, said to be the longest crossing of its type in the country, we could see some remnants of the old bridge that were visible about 100 metres downstream of the new high-level bridge. On the southern banks of the Burdekin River is the rural town of Home Hill, also with an economy driven by sugar and agriculture. Home Hill was part of the Inkerman Downs pastoral lease before the Queensland government resumed the property under the Closer Settlement Act in August 1910. The property was subdivided into farming allotments, and the township developed after the first blocks of land were sold in December 1912, and the Inkerman sugar mill commenced operations in 1914. Home Hill sugarcane farms needed irrigation water during the annual dry spell, so hollow spears were driven down into the gravel beds to draw water, while power plants were needed to raise the water to farm level. A drought in 1915 proved the need for a central electricity supply for pumping, and the Inkerman Water Supply Board constructed a powerhouse and electricity reticulation system in 1917 to the numerous local wells. Fluming, rather than porous earthen channels, conveyed the pump water to the cane blocks. The town residents had to wait until January 1930 for a conveniently located road bridge, the rail bridge having opened in 1913. About 10 kilometres south of the Burdekin River, we had passed through Inkerman, predominantly a sugarcane area with some grazing on native vegetation. Originally, the Inkerman grazing industry was plagued with the cattle tick in the mid-1890s, and the freehold was sold to the Queensland government in 1910 for farm subdivision. Today, Inkerman Station has a history of fattening, backgrounding and breeding premium livestock, spanning around 16,600 hectares spread across 14 freehold titles. The highly productive holding is underpinned by a strong mix of farming quality soil types, timbers and pastures. Cattle production is carried out on a mix of both native and introduced pastures, What a day I was having, trying to capture the scenery as we drove. If we stopped every time I saw something of interest or piqued my curiosity, we would never have made any headway on our travels. Rick and I have discussed this at length, especially when I get frustrated with the bushes, trees, fences, or any other number of things that end up in my photos. Just as well I am a happy snapper, though not so happy on occasions. The unexpected bumps and potholes in the road are frustrating. We passed through the small communities of Gumlu and Guthalungra. Gumlu is famous for market gardening and horticulture, especially producing pumpkins, melons and diverse tropical crops with its iconic giant watermelon and pumpkin structures. Guthalungra is known for its agricultural focus, mainly vast open grazing land with some cane fields. The Cape Upstart National Park coastal ranges rise to about 680 metres just north of the town, while the massive granite Mount Abbott National Park reaches 1,059 metres, roughly 20 kilometres inland to the southwest, and Mount Mackenzie at 515 metres is to the southeast. There had been a marked change in the country as we made our way further south today, from the lush green tropical areas covered in sugarcane and rainforest-capped ranges, now having given way to drier tropical areas with vegetation types including dry forest, tropical savanna, slightly undulating open timbered country and wet swampy areas with mangroves, typified by their adaptation to the arid conditions, supporting extensive beef cattle grazing on native pastures. I don't know what it is about the country, but there is always a feeling of recognition, a warm-heartedness about it, that feeling of being connected to the landscape and kinship to the land. Like when I see speargrass, a reminder of the farm I grew up on and the happy time spent wandering paddocks, or even spinifex country for that matter. We again passed country that had been burnt, ready for the bushfire season, reducing fuel loads by clearing away accumulated dry grasses, while in other places paddocks were showing signs of overgrazing with very little grass. Where early burns had occurred, green pick was emerging. Flocks of ibis were making use of waterholes along the side of the road and rail line. We had been catching glimpses of the North Coast rail line for much of our travels south. The pattern of early Queensland railway development was focused upon providing transport from inland areas to ports at the lowest possible cost. Coastal shipping provided adequate connections between the coastal communities, and so priority was given to building railways which would facilitate development and immigration to the interior of the colony. The passing of the North Coastal Railway Line Act of 1910 finally committed the government to linking Cairns, Townsville and Mackay to Rockhampton and Brisbane. As we neared Miranda, we were intrigued by the trains on the outskirts near the semi-industrial area. Miranda was a historic railway junction and locality essential to connecting the vital coastal and coal feeder networks, and today functions as a heavy haul rail junction for the coal industry, connecting the Newlands coal system to the North Coast Line and Abbott Point. The Bowen Freezer Works, or Miranda Meat Works, was a major abattoir and freezing facility established in 1895 by local graziers as the Bowen Meat Export Company, specialising in beef processing for domestic and export markets until its permanent closure in 1997. I was looking forward to checking out Bowen, as it had been my service town over 40 years ago, and I hadn't been back since. Boy, was I in for a surprise. The country around Bowen is primarily used for large-scale winter horticulture, such as tomatoes, capsicums and mangoes, along with beef cattle grazing on open alluvial pastoral land, while commercial fishing and the nearby coal export logistics via Abbott Point on the coast. Bowen was established in 1861 and is North Queensland's oldest town that sits on a square peninsula with the Coral Sea to the north, east and south, and to the south-east Port Denison and Edgecombe Bay. On the western side, where the peninsula connects with the mainland, the Don River's alluvial plain provides fertile soil that supports a prosperous farming industry and is famous for being the birthplace of the Kensington Pride mango. Being my service centre, I never had the opportunity to check Bowen out. Interestingly, it is exactly 20 degrees south of the equator, offering a unique blend of subtropical and tropical climates, and halfway between Townsville and Mackay. Being in close proximity to the equator means that the climate is relatively stable, with distinct wet and dry seasons, conducive to agriculture, especially crops, and with a rich biodiversity of tropical rainforests, savannas, grasslands and coral reefs. There is a collection of 8 stunning palm-fringed beaches in close proximity. Our first point of interest was at Flagstaff Hill Lookout, with some of the best coastal views we had seen. The 360-degree view of the whole of the Bowen region, encompassing the Whitsunday Islands of Gloucester, Middlestone, Holborn and closer to shore North Head Island with its historic lighthouse. We could also see the expanse of Kings Beach stretching to Rose Bay and the pendulous boulder of Mother Beddock Lookout on Cape Edgecombe, the township of Bowen, the harbour, marina and jetty. From Flagstaff Hill we made our way to Port Denison, a natural deep water harbour and historic maritime bay. Rick and I walked out as far as we could along the jetty before making our way back to the Catalina Memorial, located on the foreshore, an interpretive centre which provides information about the historic World War II Catalina flying boats and a war memorial wall that commemorates those who served in various armed conflicts. It was great reconnecting with Bowen, seeing how much it had developed over the years and having the time to indulge in some sightseeing. Rick and I will leave you for this episode here in Bowen. I hope you have enjoyed this compilation of photos from Carmody to Bowen. Give us a thumbs up if you have and leave a comment. Join us next episode as we continue south along the Bruce Highway to Rockhampton, doing a quick visit to Proserpine, Serena and Marlborough on the way. Cheers for this episode. Enjoy every moment. Rick and Rosemary. R&R Live and Life.